Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Sunday sermon, which is the 33rd Sunday of the year. We're coming very close to the end of the church year now. Next week will be Christ the King. But today, the reality of the world that we live in is being made very clear to us. Everything comes to an end, and all of us will die. This is not meant to frighten us, even though it is a frightening thought. But if we listen to what Jesus is saying today, we will become aware that he is actually comforting us. He's not trying to frighten us, while at the same time telling us to behave well, to follow the commandments, and to do the loving thing always. But the main message is, don't be afraid. And don't be frightened. If this is meant to frighten us, I don't think frightening a person is the best way to help them to change. We got plenty of that in our young days, maybe, when we were learning in school. We were frightened into learning, maybe. That is not the way to learn a stark message like this. It's meant to be done in love and with compassion. And certainly Jesus is full of love and compassion, and doesn't mean to frighten us. Today in our reading from Luke chapter 21, the end is known as the Day of the Lord, and the way it's described is that it would be a day of terror. It will come like a thief in the night. The world will be shattered, the stars will fall from the heavens, and the sun will go black. And the prediction for the destruction of Jerusalem is there also. It happened in AD 70 after a desperate siege in which the inhabitants of Jerusalem were actually reduced to cannibalism, and in which the city had to be taken literally stone by stone. 1,100,000 people perished in the siege, and 97,000 people were carried away into captivity. The Jewish nation was obliterated, and the temple was set ablaze and became a desolation. And in Luke chapter 21 verses 5 and 6, Luke's clearly referring to that event still to come. And it certainly would look like the end of the world. The splendor of that temple that moved Jesus to predict that not one stone would be left standing on another actually came to pass. We don't realize how beautiful and huge this temple was until we read about it. And it's described as the front face of the temple was covered with plates of gold, huge in weight, that reflected the fiery sun, especially at sunrise, as it was on a hill and could be seen for miles around. It appeared unthinkable to the Jews that the glory of the temple would be destroyed one day. Jesus also predicts the building up of another temple, a temple to replace the one that was destroyed by the Romans. And that temple will be based on the apostles. It's a spiritual temple, a house of God in our hearts, but constructed by the apostles and the prophets. And the cornerstone of that building is Jesus himself. So we are learning today, as in this world, that's the only certainty. All else in the world, including our lives, even this day, is unpredictable. Nobody can predict what's going to happen. So the only certainty we have is that God, who is Jesus, or Jesus, who is God, will not abandon us. He will be there with us in all these events that will take place or are taking place in our lives. What we are learning is that when we look around and see destruction, wars, famines, injustices, the destroying of this beautiful earth, yet we know that Jesus is promising to be with us through it all. And in recent years we have seen this very strongly in certain events. But there is one thing we have to be vigilant about. We should always have our lives with a direction, an assurance path. The path is accepting and embracing God's will, even if that's destruction, disaster, pain, isolation, and all the sufferings that this life can offer us. It's when we surrender to the will of God that we find new life. So let us not be troubled or fearful of future events that may or may not happen to us, and even those that are happening to us now and in the world around us. Some people get very depressed when they see wars, earthquakes, and natural disasters as well as man-made disasters. And don't worry, Jesus said. I am there in the midst of all that. Our cities of present day are cluttered with magnificent, beautiful yet empty churches whose congregations have decided not to follow who they represent, who is Jesus Christ. This is particularly evident in the Western world. We can give excuses and say it's because the people, and especially the priests and bishops, have failed us. That may be true, but it's our life and our journey back to God that we must keep focused on. And by refusing to pray, refusing to worship God, we are therefore moving on the same path as the Jewish people at the time of Jesus, when their behavior like this led to the destruction of the temple. Jesus predicted false prophets and people who would come claiming to be messiahs. We do see many of those among us today leading people on a wrong path, using belief in Jesus as a means to becoming rich, as if money was the answer to all our problems. Also many who are proclaiming that a lifestyle minus God, but replaced by pleasure and possessions, as if that will give meaning to our lives. There is also even the culture of fitness and eternal youth, plastic surgery, as if health and beauty and youth were the answer to all our problems. All these will ultimately fail us, and some in a disastrous way. This is a time when we should endure, and we have many examples of people around us who have fought the good fight in the line of health problems, and the way they endure and accept what has come their way as the will of God is an example to us, and it's also an encouragement. And maybe you're looking at it in your own life, that you've found the secret to life, and that is to give it all over to a greater power, which we believe is Jesus, and he is saying that to us today. I'll be with you always until the end of time. So what I'm inclined to say in recent times is, if I could get to the stage where I can say, and if we all could say, Sister Death, come on, come on. I'm not scared of you, because I know I'll be able to endure with Christ, who is with me always. May God bless you, and have a good day, and have a lovely week ahead.